The pink shirt is back. I am so excited to be back. It's been a great summer. My name is Cameron Toth. This is BizDev Live. I have the amazing Chen on with me today. He is a virtual events guru. You're going to see the tools. You're going to see the toys. You're going to have some fun today with us. Hang out with us. We'll be right back right after the BizDev theme.
BizDev Live, BizDev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. BizDev Live, BizDev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. BizDev Live, BizDev Live, business development, not even selling it. BizD with C, brought to you by Cameron T. BizD with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. BizDev Live, BizDev Live, BizDev Live. This is business development, not even selling it.
Chen has been meeting virtually for over 35 years. He can juggle 16 screens of information at a time. He has planned an international conference for 200 for Microsoft. He's produced quad language virtual webinars. He is a recognized thought leader on engaging virtual meetings. He is the Wiley and Sons author of Engaging Virtual Meetings and 50 digital team building games, top selling books. He likes to say your virtual meetings can be as good as or even better than your face-to-face meetings. Here's Chen. That is. John.
What's up, Cameron?
I'm so happy to be doing this. The first one back is September 13th, 2021. The last 18 months have been a trip. I've been luckily back to business on the grind with my staffing business. September is busy. I don't know what the future holds, but we're bringing in some revenue finally. I'm not living on PPP. BizDev Live has had to take a back seat and to the kids and everything else going on in the summer, but we're back. The pink tie is back, and the first person back with me is the fabulous Chen. Thanks for being here with me.
Thank you so much, Cameron. Now, you fulfilled one of my bucket list items, which is I could actually come on after the Cameron T intro. So I am John C after the Cameron.
So tell us, man, why did you get passionate about virtual events? I'm looking forward to seeing these toys. I don't want to keep people waiting any longer. Talk to us about how you got into this whole thing.
Okay, so for this, I got to kind of show you a little bit, right? So there's a couple of things, and it's like, first off, who am I and what do I do? So this is my office, right? Okay, so now the first part is I used to do a lot of team building, 24 years of team building after spending 10 years at Microsoft. But what happened in March of 2020? Coronavirus, right? And after that, what happened there? I lost 15 events. So, but guess what? I was here. Do you remember, Cameron, do you even know what this thing is?
I can't say that I do.
That's okay. That's all right. Prodigy, right? Prodigy was the first graphical-based online service. It was pre-AOL, and I was on it. I actually calculated. I've been online for 35 years. So what did I do last year whenever the world was panicking? Well, the good news is in 2011, I actually wrote this book, 50 Digital Team Building Games, which means for 35 years plus this, I've been trying to get people online. And so what happened was I actually created a class called Virtual Team Building, and over 5,000 people took it last year. So my publisher, Wiley and Sons, says, hey, John, would you like to write your second book? And I said, sure, let's do that. And I finished it in 1/3 of the time. If anybody says you can't write a book in 2 months, tell them they're full of it. You're one of your friends, actually did it. And of course, it came out in October of 2020 and hit the #1 Amazon hot new release. And now, Cameron, I spend most of my time designing, producing, as well as speaking at and emceeing virtual meetings. So that's a little bit about me.
I love it. And show everybody your setup there, because I love looking at the toys.
Now, what happens here is what have I developed over the years? So I too, like Cameron right now, he's got 3 screens, right? I went from 1 screen to 2 screen to 3 screens, and then I had 3 screens upstairs and 3 screens downstairs. And I'm like, in one of those dreams, right? It comes, what if I put them all together? Well, then it looks like this. That's what I do. I have 6 screens, right? What I just did there was, this is the PowerPoint. I just take this video and I put myself in front of it. I have a bunch of other really cool things. This is a stream deck. So when I push a button and change a scene, this makes it faster, so I can respond to people in real time. This here, like simple things like this, big clock, right? This helps me stay on time here in virtual, which I think is so important. Here's some other things that I can do. I have an iPad in front of me right now. I'm running a sound pad, so I can do things like this. And then I got my text message here, so like if Cameron needs to, message me in the middle of a program or something, things are here, a mixing board on the left. So yeah, all of these things I developed over the last 18 months, trying to figure out how I can produce programs even better. Stephanie, what's up?
Stephanie from my Master Networks folks here. Listen, John, I love seeing all of the gear. And I know one of the things that we're going to talk about today is that virtual meetings don't have to cost a lot. You don't have to spend bajillions of dollars, but obviously you have a lot of bells and whistles. We were talking about this before we jumped on, microphones, screens, having a computer. I know big thing for me, just streaming, doing a show like this, looking at, upload speed and download speed versus, because everybody worries about, if you're watching Netflix, you got your download speed, but in order to stream, your upload speed needs to be someplace, that kind of thing. So there are some cost elements that are like some baseline things. So when you talk about virtual not needing to cost a lot, what are you talking about?
Well, there's just something like your internet. One of the tips I've given all 18 months is that if you are having slow internet, call your provider, whoever your provider is, and ask for specifically, and this actually, I got this tip pre-pandemic, ask for the customer loyalty department. And I did it last year when I started to lag a little bit. And what happened was I got 10 times the speed, and it cost $25 a month less. And so that's a great example of this stuff doesn't have to cost a lot. Like in my setup, when I send here, going back here to this, I happen to have all these screens, right? So I already sunk all the cost of paying for them, and they're actually not that much, $100-200 a pop, but I already had them. Now the hard part is getting all the equipment to get all these things connected to one computer. But like this right here, this mixing board is something that you can really allow something to bring music in. And this costs $99. And the key to this is like, I can do these smooth fades for music in and out. And so on all of my virtual meetings, you'll hear me playing an intro song. Like I actually do walk-on songs for speakers, and they love it because they miss that as part of the real world. So those are some examples of things that don't cost a lot.
And it's funny you say that with the music, because I do that with some of the networking events I do, and music is such a big deal. So having that ability to do it and do it in a way that works, because I know oftentimes, because I don't have, I gotta up my game, John. I gotta get the mixing console there. But I do it, using the tools that, I have on the laptop, and sometimes I'm kind of delaying things to move around. So it really helps to have things at your fingertips. We talked about it before we jumped on, being able to see everything at once. If you're working off of one small screen, even though a lot of computers allow you to have multiple panels, flipping over and trying to figure it out, which one is what, and all that jazz. And forget about trying to run a PowerPoint presentation where PowerPoint starts taking up 3 of your screens, right? All that kind of stuff. It's crazy. So these are some tools that make it easier. But let's say you have your stuff in place and you want to create an engaging virtual meeting. Where are you telling people to focus? What do you want people to do to create an engaging meeting?
So now in engaging a meeting, we do have 6 principles inside of the book. I'll just go through 1 or 2 of them to really, I think these are the 2 most important. So Cameron, the number 1 thing is that we have something that's called engage, right? And there's 6 steps to really help people make the meeting more engaging. And the first one is this: if you want engagement, engage. Now that sounds simple, but let me tell you, there are lots of people not doing it, which is, reach out, find like things like this, like Stephanie, she came in and chatted to us, reach out immediately to somebody and reward people who are interacting with you. So if you're looking for engagement, then engage. And the second one is this, which is the N in engage stands for never lead a meeting alone. So if you have very high value meetings, even if they're small, or especially if they're large, find a way to work together. So even who have been meeting online for 35 years, I can still find myself on mute, right? So like, you know, like I came on with Cameron here in the first 12 seconds, he's like, can I hear you, right? So, you know, I'm just saying that number one, it's not your fault, right? And it's not your fault because this stuff is designed in such a way that it's not necessarily totally intuitive yet for a human. But the second one after that is never lead a meeting alone. Find a way to pair with somebody, such as a producer. You know, take half of the jobs and move them off. And so especially for you as a speaker, you can do this. You can stay more focused on a person instead of saying the words, and now I'm going to share my screen. No, let somebody else do that, right? Let somebody else do that so you as the leader can, as a speaker, can stay connected to your audience and have somebody else be able to handle things like chat and so forth and so on. So those are two of my top tips.
And I love it. And you can see that in action when speakers got good eye contact, right? Because right now I'm not looking at any of my screens. I'm looking into the camera so I can have eye contact with the audience. And so if you're doing that and you're doing that well, you're not necessarily able to read comments on the go. You're not able to do that. I sort of cheat by pulling myself off screen for some of these things so that I can do some other things while I'm going on, and it doesn't affect the way the audience feels about how I'm being perceived looking at them or looking away, right? And that's something I think that's really important, just having good screen presence, because if you're in person, it can be forgived. You look away for a second because it's assumed you're making eye contact with somebody else in the room and nobody, but when you're on camera and I'm sitting here on the other end of the screen and I'm just looking here, well, I don't see other people that you're making eye contact with. I just see you, and I know I'm here, and I feel all alone if you're not making eye contact with me.
Cameron, side to that, I just finally received there is a Indigo, it's like a Kickstarter type thing. It's called a center cam. And a center cam is a flexible camera, and it can drop the camera height, 1 to 5 inches below the top of the monitor. And so, for instance, my other setup downstairs, by the way, hey, Cameron, do you miss dinner parties?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so in missing dinner parties, we actually set up an HD TV across from our dinner table. So we can meet you and your lovely wife, right, for dinner virtually. And so now I use the center camera to drop the camera below. So when I'm looking actually at your eyes camera, I'm actually looking in the camera so you believe that I'm looking at you. And so it's about $100. I got it on an experiment, and I'm just starting to test it out and seeing if I like it. But I can tell you that's one of the ways to improve eye contact while still looking naturally at somebody.
And what's the name of that again?
Center Cam. I think it's thecentercam.com. And I got 2 of them for about $100. And I can tell you that it's better. It's obviously better than that. In my setup here in this office, I actually need to raise all my 6 monitors up about 3 inches for it to work right. So I haven't installed it here.
It gets complicated when you get adding gear to the desk and adding gear to the desk. Where do the wires go?
Exactly. Oh my gosh, you haven't seen that camera, and I got to get a camera behind here because I think that'll be more interesting than even the camera that's showing with gear.
Yeah, anybody that's had the wire battle knows like it can be a complicated thing. And then I have a MacBook, and there's only so many entry points into the MacBook. You can't even hook the internet line into the MacBook. You need an extension just to make that happen. It gets a little crazy and wild. So talk to us, John, talking a little bit about the cost of it. Engaging virtual meetings are possible. Now, I think for a lot of people out there that, have been through an IRS update meeting, been through a few sessions with their parent organization, their corporation, that they were required mandatory meetings to go to. They're probably saying, nope, it's not possible to make those meetings engaging. What do you say to that?
I just look how they're doing them. The best part is I have an Engaging Virtual Meetings Facebook community, and there's about 1,100 members there. And what I love about it now is people are really sharing things. Like they're showing like an all hands meeting, and they'll do things like in an all hands meeting and give commentary back, sometimes all the way to the VP or the president of the company, and saying things like, you logged in, nobody is here. All the cameras were off, right? We have people who are in charge of host and co-hosted who are not muting other people. They're not setting the mute on entry for a 300 or 400 person meeting. These are all the things that they're not doing, but now they're giving feedback. And the best part about that is that hopefully they're making these large meetings better. There are ways to do it, Cameron. Like even a 500-600 person meeting. I actually ran a 1,200 person conference, and the key is that you got to look for different tools. Like the number 2 most powerful engaging tool on virtual is chat. And the reason why is all 1,200 people can actually chat at the same time, right? Poll is another great large, group type of thing, because you can get a lot of information in this very short amount of time. Because if we did introductions for 1,200 people, we'd be here for like 14 hours, and that would be the worst virtual meeting. So that's what I'd look at is, find the right tools, right, for the right job, right, for the right audience, and figure out a way to do that, to engage them.
Yeah, I remember being a part of a public webinar, and the host was like, "No, please don't talk to each other in the chat." I was like, really? Like, why am I here? What am I doing? Like, I thought, the whole point was to connect with other people, and, they didn't want to distract from the webinar. And like, people are already distracted. I think that you're missing the point of a meeting if you're thinking that you're just going to be able to present one to many and everybody's just going to be in tune. And that goes back to in-person meetings, right? Because event planners need to understand that we are past the days where you can just book a speaker, put them on a stage, and have 50, 100, 200 people just looking up at the stage and be happy with that. Because if you have that one-to-many type education, well, that's available on YouTube. And chances are what's on YouTube is probably a lot more exciting than what you've booked, unless you have something that's along the lines of a 3-ring circus. It's just not going to be that engaging and entertaining to one-to-many. So we have an opportunity with virtual and the hybrid experiences to really engage people where they're at. What are some of the tools that you're utilizing to engage many people at all times? You already mentioned one, chat, right? What are some other things that you're utilizing to make sure that people are engaged in the meeting?
Well, what's amazing about this, and I'm going to give a shout out to my client, Training Magazine, because they really took, I think, a cool risk with that, which is in this conference, they decided to do 100% live content. Right. And what I mean by that is that there are no webinars, or more importantly, there were no pre-recorded videos. You have to think about that, Cameron. What's the last conference you went to that did not have a pre-recorded video? Because in a pre-recorded video, I'm with you, Cameron. It should be like this, right? If you wanted a pre-recorded video, why don't you send it to me and let me watch it on my own time, not in a virtual meeting. Right. And so by doing a conference that's 100% live, then they have a way to engage you. Every program is different because you're here, Cameron. That gets you back to that piece that says, why am I here? Why am I here? And so you can actually affect that. So number 2 is chat. Number 3 is the no-brainer, though. But this is how powerful they are. Breakout rooms. Breakout rooms drastically change the dynamics of communication, because in the end, we only have this one audio channel. If Cameron and I start talking at the same time, this whole live stream becomes unintelligible, right? We already know this from the past year's activity. So, a breakout room does that where, you get people into 3 or 4 people in a room. Now we can actually have a conversation with each other. And that's what the equivalent of when a speaker says, now in your table, discuss this thing, that's the virtual equivalent. But think about the things that are better here, Cameron, right? Before, you used to have to get our cell phone and like get an app and get something to engage with the virtual, to engage with the speaker. And now, right, the speaker actually has a whole bunch of tools built in, such as chat, right, such as poll, such as some of these other types of things where, like getting an audience of 1,200 to collaborate on a whiteboard is actually really difficult in the real world because of space. But it's actually possible, and we've actually done it in the virtual world where because of the way the tools are. And so this is really gets me to one of my core beliefs. Sometimes some things in virtual are better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting because it's going to really change so many different things across the board. Education, obviously our meetings and events, but you get this sort of sense, this idea that education presentations can be done better. They can be more interesting. I'd love to engage the audience right now. If you're watching this, whether it's live or you're watching replay, do that hashtag replay if you're watching this on the replay. But what has been the most engaging piece of your meetings that's come out of this pandemic, either before or during? Maybe there's something that you've learned, you've been in one meeting or another. We would love to hear, I know John would love to hear from you. What has been the most engaging thing? What's been the most fun thing? Has it been a breakout room? Has it been music in the meetings? Has it been some sort of interactive engagement, whether they were doing a whiteboard or questions and polling? What were things that really got you excited about the meeting? Or you sat up and said, oh, wow, this is different. I really like this. We would love to hear from you. So please take a moment, get into those comments and let us know. John, what are, I know you literally wrote the book on this. What are some of the things that you're hearing from people are things that are almost always a crowd pleaser? I know you mentioned breakout rooms, the chat. Any other things?
Well, I'm going to go from crowd pleaser, though, to effective, right? So, and the reason why is because I think this is the thing that I see now as my second most important topic, right? Have you ever heard of Google's Aristotle project, Cameron?
No.
I thought I told you never to call me here. So Google's Aristotle project studied teams, and they said the highest, most effective teams in all of Google in 18 months. They said, what do all these teams have in common? And the challenge they had is they have these really structured, right, amazing teams. They hit all their milestones, and they ship product on time. And then they have all these chaotic, crazy cowboy teams that get finished stuff at the last second, looks like magic. And they said, what do these teams that are high performing have in common? And they went through the research, and there have 5 factors, but the number one is psychological safety. And what it's defined as is that you feel safe taking a risk amongst your team members. And I believe psychological safety in virtual meetings is the next place to go. So examples like this, right, is, our good friend who is no longer with us, this is a shout out to our good friend, Elizabeth Glau. Thank you, Simmer. Is that Elizabeth Glaus and I were writing a virtual manifesto, and it's a new meetings manifesto about virtual meetings. And one of them is, we want virtual meetings that make you cry in a good way, right? And so what we're saying is that great virtual meetings actually have emotional content. They can actually move you. And so she really felt strongly about adding that. And that's what we've seen. I've seen in one other case, somebody talked about they just had to have a surgery with their baby. They were just talking about, random things like that. But they said that the whole chat changed, right? And there was 250 people on the call, and the 250 people, you could feel the whole energy change, and people were chatting support for this one person where it changed. The second one was, I was in another virtual meeting, and a guy calling in from England came in and he said, I'd like to follow up on something I said in the meeting prior to this. And so he said he had never written a piece of poetry and read it out loud. He came back in a week. He had thought about this, actually wrote a piece of poetry, and then asked, could I read it aloud so I can finish, this thing that I started? And the whole attention just changed. Everyone focused on this person, was supporting him, because you could clearly see he was uncomfortable doing it. And it really turned into one of the highlight and really emotional moments. So my challenge to people is if you're looking for engagement and effectiveness, how can you bring emotion, right? And how can you bring psychological safety so that we can have deeper conversations here on virtual?
Yeah, I'd love to go a little bit deeper into the psychological safety, because I love this. And I think one of the roots of it is that we've had this amazing possibility, right? So we have, the whole world has gotten Zoom training over the last 18 months, more people online meeting than ever before. In a lot of cases, it's become a lot less personal, because you have all these people meeting, we're doing virtual online meetings. And what doesn't exist is the bumping into people in the hallway before the meeting. And you don't have the follow-up after, I had a question about, that's a really nice blouse. Where did you get that? Silly kind of conversations that really have a major impact on our comfort level psychologically with the people that we're meeting with. The permissions, the different entryways into who people are, getting a real feel, because you got the walls up when you're going into a meeting and you don't know people, right? Because you got to protect yourself.
Yes. And so Cameron, I mean, it's like, look at all our industry friends, especially here in the meetings and hospitality industry. Most of us became great friends, not because we presented, not because we were sitting next to each other in a keynote. It's because most likely, right, we went out to cocktails afterwards, right, or something like that. And then people start to let their guard down, and they find this social time without an agenda, and find out, what do you and I have in common, and do we align in some of the things that we feel important? You know, just like that. You find a vibe, right, of somebody saying, this is somebody who I resonate with, or I'm impressed with, or I have respect for, and I'd like to hang out more. So we've done a lot of these things. In fact, actually, I have created a happy hour, and it's still going, by the way. It's been going since March of 2020, and it's every Friday at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. If you go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/P for programs, you can register. And again, it's totally free. And we've been able to achieve the highest level of psychological safety there. And the reason why is people show up on a regular basis. We never record it. We never live stream it. And we just let people talk. And actually, a lot of people came out. They actually asked for 2 meetings a week in the middle of coronavirus, because people couldn't wait to like dump some of this stuff off, right? And it became a place for people to release stuff that they had built up from coronavirus, the anxiety, right? The challenges, right? The low points, the high points. And so that really was something I've seen. I do believe that psychological safety can be achieved in a virtual meeting. And I've actually now have a place to experiment with it, and actually have seen it in action. You should try it. Again, no agenda. We just get online. It's 90 minutes. There is no agenda. We talk about whatever happens. And sometimes those are the funniest or the best virtual meetings that I've had this year.
Now, let me talk about this, because I think this is a big deal. You mentioned the no recording.
Yes.
Now, I was doing BizDev Live networking, and I was also doing a thing for MPI Westfield chapter we were doing, and I think you came and visited us probably at least once, but we were doing a lunch bunch, and I had many people say, well, is it going to be recorded? Can I watch it later? And I was like, no. And because the big concern was, what were people's comfort level going to be, in here? Part of the whole piece was it's social networking, it's getting together and just having a place of I don't want to say safety, that wasn't the word would be first to come to mind, but just a place where I'm not feeling like I'm on stage, and I'm not having to be my most formal self. We want to talk together. We want to be there for each other. We want to be familiar. We want to create that psychological safety zone. That is something that is really important. And as soon as you hit that record button, because you're going to share it later, which I understand people's desire. Oh, it's online and we have the ability to record it. Just because you have the ability to record it doesn't mean it necessarily should be recorded.
I'll give you one counter example too. So in this case, by default, right? I do a happy hour after my weekly meeting as well, is to open the meeting early. Yeah, definitely the meeting before the meeting and the meeting after the meeting is the most important meeting, right? And so, but going back to this, is that there's a place where recording will lower the psychological safety. But I do have one example of recording actually increased the psychological safety. So somebody reported to me they were having, like 2 people were having severe conflict, fighting during a meeting, a virtual meeting, right? And all she did was, because she was host of the meeting, she clicked record. And the 2 people immediately stopped fighting. Right? Because this is the thing. You saw how powerful, we saw last year, how powerful one recorded video in the right place can be. It can change the whole world. And so that's why that power of recording is really something. So, but my guests my attendees are really attuned to that. They're like, wait, they're looking for it. Hey, John, you're recording. Like, I might have accidentally started live streaming for something or recorded something for some reason. They'll make me turn it off before they dump, something that's really personal. And so that it's a great, what I think is most important is look how the tools are used and then use them for the purpose that you're looking for. So in this case, most of the time, you can use it by turning off recording. But there are times when you can increase psychological safety by recording. You just have to figure out what it is. Yeah, you missed the live energy, Susan. That's totally it, right? I've recorded hundreds of programs, and my odds of going back and watching them are kind of around 20%.
Yeah, no, I think it's one of those things that we have to all be very careful of. The tools, I love the example that you gave with the record button, bringing the conflict down, because you got people that they're not going to misbehave on camera, but it's not right. So there's a time and a place for everything, and understanding that we do the same thing in person. We do the same thing in virtual events, and it's just bringing over and making ourselves comfortable with these tools. I love the comments we're getting from Susan and Stephanie regarding the love of the happy hour, letting the hair down, and finding new ways to do that online. It's a tough thing, especially when you talk food and beverage. Like even the idea of you saying, "Oh, I want to have dinner with you and your wife virtually," that sounds scary to me, because even though I do a lot of extroverted things, I'm introverted at heart. Like somebody watching me eating. Now, doing it in person, come over, no big deal. Suddenly you put a camera there and a screen, and I'm not so into it.
We're both eating at the same time. That's actually what's cool. And like in the early versions of it, me and a good friend, thanks Stephanie for the great tip, Marnie Ness, who's one of the ILEA board members here in Seattle, we actually made the same meal. We went so far as made the same meal and got the same bottle of wine. So it looked like the illusion, like the meeting rooms where you have the flip back on the other side is really, really a key piece. Oh, I love all this interaction you're getting, Camera. That's great. Braden, thanks for the great tips.
Braden's awesome. And John, if you haven't met Braden, and this one of the reasons I do the show, entrepreneurship, small businesses, people connecting. Braden is a magician who does speaking on leadership. So we'll actually do the magic of leadership. So have you met Braden?
I have not. So Braden, it's CEO John Chen on LinkedIn. Would love to hear from you. I have worked with musicians. The great Nash Fung here in Seattle, who has been on Penn and Teller, is also now working his magic into a personal development talk. So it's really cool. I love when we do that. And that's, magic here on virtual is actually something that's really is expanding. So I know a number of the other Vegas acts have figured out, they bit the bullet, and now they're running these things like this, graphics, OBS, other types of things, and just saying how it's all an illusion here anyways. You really need to think about, you can be anywhere now. And now once you think you can be anywhere, where could you be that could support your message? And so that's where I'm looking at all these things now.
I love it. All right. So John, I know he got a call this morning. He's going to go produce a virtual event last minute to the rescue here. So close this out, John. Give us just sort of your, what your ideal list is. Clients coming to you, they want to put together a meeting. What do you want to put into that meeting? And let's say it's something where we're trying to inspire people and get some training out, right? What do you want to include in that meeting?
So what do I want to include in that meeting? So I got to show you this, because this is one of the latest things that I've been working on, right? Is that you need to think about your presenters. Your presenters now can't just be great speakers. They need to know how to do things like this. Like, let's say the weather here in Sweden is going to look amazing. So, you got to look for people who have the technology. But again, I think you got to start on the first part. Start on the goals. What are the goals of the program? And then based on that, what are the tools that you have to do with that? And again, I really believe that large programs, all right, and other different kind of programs can really be engaging. And my best example, again, we do a 1,200 person conference. By using the 6 pieces of engagement that I wrote inside my book, we taught that to 200 people. In the most extreme example of never lead a meeting alone, we had 200 speakers, producers, and ambassadors and staff who all agreed to the same 6 principles. And we were able to make a 1,200 person conference engaging for everybody. I think those are the most important things that you can do. And again, you can do it basically on Zoom. You don't need any of these expensive or other pieces of tools. Once you have a solid video connection like this, there are lots of things that you can do inside of this, all right, that don't cost anything. In fact, all the software here for all this stuff doesn't cost anything except for the time it takes to learn that. And the real key about that is, again, now how do I use these tools to achieve the effect for your client? And that's what we've seen as the best parts inside of the year, is saying, what is your goal? what are the tools we have available, and how can we best use them to make your effect happen for the goal, or increase the odds, right? Increase the odds. The last piece I'm going to give for this is plan C, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I. You know, on virtual, it's so new. There are still so many things happening. The way that I know that I personally have survived things, including my fuse blowing for all of my 16 screens here. Oh my gosh, yeah, and that really happened, is that you have a plan B, C, D, and E. So because I had a team, right, I blew power. I went to my back channel. Every program has a back channel. So we have a way to communicate. And I said, blew a fuse, keep going. And so the professional MC and some of the other co-hosted producers kept the meeting going. And then 10 minutes later, I rejoined. But that was the key. The key is that we had somehow or another built a team up enough that we could handle virtually anything that happened. And that's the last piece I can really give you. One of the greatest quotes came from Bob Pike, who's like 3 decades into the training industry. Mm-hmm. Producing a live conference is a huge risk, unless you have the right team. And building that right team, this is the great part for me as a team builder and coming back in, using my team building skills in the virtual world, because I truly believe that virtual meetings is a team sport. It's too complicated to do by yourself. So that's really the best thing that you could do, is build your team.
Yeah, and I think that just a bit of a warning for anybody that's like, oh, I'm just going to go. It's a virtual meeting. I'm just going to show up and it's going to work. You wouldn't do that for an in-person meeting, right? You would lay out your clothes. You would lay out the stuff that you're trained, like all these different pieces to an in-person meeting, no matter how small or how big. And you would prepare for it. You would research. You would make sure all of the decor is in place. You would make sure that all of the, people were known. You know how to serve people. It's the same thing for virtual. You can't expect better results virtually if you're not putting that preparation time. And I think a lot of people are like, well, I showed up and it wasn't like an in-person meeting at all. Well, did you prepare like it was an in-person meeting, right? Did you do some of these things to make sure that you were putting some of the best practices into place and making sure that you're prepared for everybody? Or are you just blaming it on the computer in front of you? So great tip, John. It can be a great advantage to have 2 internet providers in case one goes out live. That's a big deal. And going back, for those that missed it, one of John's first tips, get in contact with the customer loyalty department with your provider. I know that was something that was big for me at the beginning of this whole streaming thing. I was actually paying for service that I wasn't actually receiving. And so it didn't cost me anything. I was already paying for it. In fact, I was, if you want to look at it, kind of real way, I was money was being shipped off and I wasn't, getting the service for it. I followed up and they got me the upload speed that I was actually paying for. And now I was able to go from a lag kind of thing to, oh, look, he looks like he's moving in real time. All right, there we go. And Samir's chiming in, Teresa chiming in. Thanks, Teresa. So close us out here, John. I really appreciate you coming on here. You are the master of virtual events. Let people know how they can get in touch with you. Obviously, you're here on LinkedIn. So for all my LinkedIn folks, get in touch, connect with John. Great person to be attached to, knows a lot of people and does this virtual events thing all the time. And leave people with some parting words and we'll play the BizDev theme off here.
There we go. Yeah, at LinkedIn, you can get me at CEO John Chen, right? Don't get the other guy. He's the CEO for BlackBerry. And on the website, you can go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com, engagingvirtualmeetings.com. I have some free resources there. I got a 16-point speaker checklist. I got some video signs, that are kind of like this. And then after that, Engaging Virtual Meetings, all I can say is, hey, Cameron, thank you, right? And for the rest of you, bye. And hopefully I'll see you later online sometime here. Thanks again, Cameron.
John, thanks so much for doing this with me. Everybody, the pink shirt is back. We're going to be back every day at 11 a.m. Please make sure if you have not gone to YouTube, support the channel. Really appreciate you. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. You can find it by typing in BizDev Live or Cameron Toth into YouTube and you'll find the channel. Make sure you go and do the same thing for John Chen. We really appreciate you. Thanks everybody for participating. This makes it engaging and fun. To John's point, we will see you tomorrow. I'm going to play us off with the BizDev thing. Thank you, John.
Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time, live. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration, Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live. Business development, not even selling it. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is business development, not even selling it. Biz Dev Live, Biz Dev Live.